All right, welcome to Campfire Football. I'm Sebastian North. This is a live stream that I'm doing here just to react to the World Cup draw. So, great big step towards the big show. We finally get to know basically the majority of the matches. Obviously, there's just the 6 teams left from the playoffs that still need to join the groups and find out where they're going to be on the schedule. But overall, the major part of the draw is done, and this really is what's exciting because now you can really look forward to the World Cup. You don't need to do these fake draws and little things where you're sort of predicting everything. Now it's official. We know who's going to play who for the most part, and so we can go ahead and look forward to what's going to happen in 7 months, which is the greatest show on earth, the greatest party on the planet, coming to the United States. And I couldn't be more excited. The last time the World Cup was here was in 1994, obviously. I was 8 years old at the time, and so in those days, for anyone that's around my age, you know that it was not easy to watch soccer on TV. There wasn't much coverage. And though it was a massive event, I'm from Colorado. There were no games in my area, and I also used to spend summers in France with my family. So I just didn't really have much of a grasp of what was going on at the time. Keep in mind, my parents are French and English. Neither of those two teams qualified for the World Cup, so there wasn't this desire even in the home to sort of really find a way to see it. So now it's coming back in 2026, and as a full-on adult, I couldn't be more excited to participate in everything that's going to happen. It's really going to be a fantastic tournament. So what I'm going to be doing is going to Texas in the summer and checking out some games there, just being around everything, and hopefully it's going to go off without a hitch. So first of all, the ceremony, complete trash. I mean, 90 minutes you had to wait for basically the real meat of the draw because they did all the performances, all of the little breakdowns. You know, you had Rio Ferdinand talking to kids, and he did a pretty decent job with his acting, actually, and explaining the draw. And I understand all that, but the question is really how many people are watching this that aren't already sort of paying attention or have their finger on the pulse. I'm sure some. The other thing about all the musical acts and everything is FIFA is trying to cater to the largest demographic there is, which is basically everyone on the planet. That's tough. So it's always goofy, it's always weird, but the fact that it took 90 minutes for us to get to the part of the draw where you found out who was going to be where was really frustrating because they obviously did the like USA, Mexico, and Canada pots. They pulled them out and put them in their groups, and everyone's like, hey, look at this, is amazing. We have the US in this group, and it's like, okay, so what, right? But look, the ceremony is what it is. It's always goofy. It's always weird. And so it's finally really nice that we're getting to see like the actual layout of the tournament. So we have 12 groups, 4 teams per group. Top 2 will qualify, third place as well, but only a certain amount of third place teams. I think it's 8 total to make a round of 32. So top 2 teams from each group. That makes 24. Then you need 8 third-place teams out of the 12 groups. So it's not that hard to make it to the knockout rounds, right? You have to be absolutely dreadful to not qualify for the knockouts. So we probably won't see any of the big teams completely fail. It's not going to be like Germany in the last 2 World Cups who barely finished third in their group or on goal difference and therefore were knocked out. This is going to be completely different. So let's go ahead and kick it off with Group A. And what I'm going to do here is actually pull up the groups so that we can actually see them and also see the schedule. So here we go. Group A, Mexico. They will play their first match against South Africa. So South Africa, once again, getting the first match of the World Cup as they did when they hosted. Everyone remembers that Shabalala goal and just how fantastic it was. Of course, Mexico will be the home side. Mexico, I'll just go through the other team in the group. It's South Korea, and then they'll have the UEFA Path D winner. And that Path D winner would be either Czechia, Republic of Ireland, Denmark, or North Macedonia. So, look, I think Denmark, are probably slightly the favorites, but Czechia and Republic of Ireland can be dangerous as well. Republic of Ireland, if Troy Parrott is, doing his thing, we could definitely have a pretty interesting. Yeah, I mean, it'd be kind of funny to see the Republic of Ireland make it. Look, reality is, I think Denmark will be that team, but what we'll have is Mexico at home in all three of their matches. And I think the difficult thing for Mexico is playing at home. There's not been very much goodwill from their fans. The team seems to not really like playing at home either. We heard Raul Jimenez talking about that. And yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. Can the Mexico fans really rally around their team? Because they've never made it past the quarterfinal. They've never made it past the fifth match, the quinto partido, as they like to say. Well, the fifth match here is going to be the round of 16. So can they make it to the quarterfinal, which they've done before, but not in a format that has 8 matches if you go all the way. So, look, Mexico, it's really simple. If they are able to play in front of a raucous crowd that supports them and they play well, I think they'll do just fine in this group. I think they'll win the group, which would just be good for the tournament. You want to see the host nations do well. South Korea, South Africa, I think South Korea are the better side between those two. And then, of course, like, is it going to be Denmark, Czechia, Republic of Ireland? It's hard to really make a call on these groups that don't yet have all the teams in them yet. But we can actually see that this is not a tough group for Mexico. So, yeah, definitely going to be fascinating to see how this goes. Obviously, these two teams played each other back in the 2022 World Cup. And to be honest, I don't remember the result. But unimportant. So that's Group A. Group B. This is what's going to be kind of interesting. Is Canada, another one of the hosts? They got, I would say, a pretty nice group as well. Switzerland, I think, are a better side than any of the other teams in Mexico's group. Not by much, but we did see the way they absolutely hammered the United States. So Switzerland are going to be a good side. Qatar, it's good to see them actually qualify for the World Cup because last time around they were automatic as hosts. So this time they actually qualified for the tournament on their own. They've merited it, and so it's nice to see them actually as part of the sort of global footballing community that sort of makes it to major tournaments. Then you've got the UEFA Path A winner, which will be either Italy, Northern Ireland, Wales, or Bosnia and Herzegovina. So, look, it has to be Italy. If you want it to be like the a classic team making it to the World Cup, Italy are the side. Of course, if you're Welsh or you're Northern Irish or you're Bosnian, you'd obviously like to see your team in this because you have a real chance. Again, with third place teams going through, and this is going to come up in every single group, the third place teams, if you just hang in there and don't get battered, there's a really good chance you go through. So all of these teams will be in with a shout. Canada will play that UEFA Path A winner. Let's say it's Italy. They would get them first. And then they will have Qatar and close out with Switzerland. So not going to be easy for Canada, especially if it's Italy that make it through. Definitely a more challenging group than Mexico. But they will be good. Check to see if we got anything in the chat here. Nope. Okay, so, one of the other hosts, their group looks challenging. I can definitely see them finishing second and Switzerland winning the group. Again, it depends on who this UEFA Path A winner is. And so these groups, the ones that aren't settled yet, are a little bit more challenging to really call. But overall for Canada, I think this is going to be a really, really good starting point. All right, let's do Group C, and this is the first of the groups that we're getting into here that has all 4 teams completely set. And you've got Brazil, Morocco, Haiti, and Scotland. Brazil will start with Morocco, and Haiti will play Scotland. Then Brazil will have Haiti, Scotland, Morocco, and then finally Scotland, Brazil, Morocco, Haiti. Brazil and Scotland, last time they faced each other in the World Cup was in 1998, Scotland's last appearance at the tournament. Brazil won 2-1. That was the opening match of the 98 World Cup. First time we got to see Brazilian Ronaldo playing at the World Cup. And I think this is going to be, it's cool to see this sort of matchup reignited again. look, I think Brazil are going to have a relatively easy time with obviously Haiti and Scotland, but it's that first match of Brazil-Morocco that's going to be absolutely fascinating. If Morocco can come in and sort of with the squad and play the way they did at the last World Cup, it's going to be interesting. Now, Haiti are obviously one of the surprise packages to make it to this tournament. It's a little bit of a fairy tale that they're here. We've heard, you may have heard, their coach has never actually been to Haiti because and Haiti were not able to play any of their qualification matches at home. They had to play them in Curacao due to political unrest and then hurricanes and I mean, tough situation for Haiti, but they're going to be happy to be there. They're going to do their best, but I can see them getting absolutely battered against Brazil specifically, maybe even Morocco. Scotland, look, they've got Scott McTominay. And in the form he's been in over the last 18 months, you do not doubt that he can come up, pull up some trees, and do well. So the Scotland-Morocco game, I think, is going to be really one to watch because that is going to, I think, decide really who takes second place in this group. Now, with the third place teams, this is one of the groups that's that where it matters right here because what you have is Haiti, if they get battered, like if they get absolutely smoked in, say, at least one, but maybe even two of the matches, that puts them well out of contention, which then means that if you are a team that has a relatively decent goal difference, maybe even just -1 or -2, you put yourself in a great position because you're not one of the teams that ends up with a -5 or -7 goal difference, which you will probably see from a few teams. Haiti possibly being one of them, maybe Curacao being another. I don't want to down these small teams, but there is a chance that some of them get absolutely thrashed in a game. That puts them out of contention for third place and makes it easier for one of the other teams in their group to do that. Or it makes it easier for teams in other groups to be able to do that. So, look, it'll be interesting, but yeah, definitely the key match here is going to be Brazil-Morocco. All right, let's get to Group D, and it is the U.S.'s group. So this is fascinating, actually. The U.S. draw Paraguay and Australia, and then the UEFA Path C winner, who would be Slovakia, Kosovo, Turkey, or Romania. Now, if it's Turkey, that would mean that the three opponents that the U.S. have in their group are opponents that they have faced in friendlies in the last year, which is totally fascinating. I mean, that doesn't really happen where you've recently played against all of the teams that you have in your group. And look, the results have been good. Beat Australia, beat Paraguay. So the U.S. is in a good state here. Turkey beat us, but we were playing absolutely terribly in that match. So this is a great draw for the U.S. It's absolutely fantastic. I think it's also good to prepare you for the next rounds because none of these games will be easy. They will all be challenging games, but they're clearly winnable because we've already done it. I would like to see Turkey make it through. Kosovo would be a nice story. Slovakia, I'm just not really sure they would provide enough. And then Romania, they're all right, but they're not really in a strong point right now. So I think Turkey would be cool. Look, Arda Güler would be great to see at the World Cup. And I think the Turks are always a fun team to see play in these major tournaments because they're kind of capable of beating anybody. And I'm very much... I very much think that if Turkey can get through this playoff stretch, they will actually maybe be the strongest team in this group. Now, with the U.S. being at home, we have to look at this as every game needs to be win. I really do think you can win this group. 9 points, 7 minimum. Win the group, put yourself in a good situation for the round of 32. Be able to win that game and move on to the round of 16. And then really now it's up to how well you're playing, what the form is like, how's the feeling in the camp. Are the fans really up for it? And this couldn't be, I think, a better scenario for the U.S. right here is that, if we get going and we start playing well from the start, we're going to have a lot of momentum. And that could take us a long way into the tournament. I don't know how far, but it will be real interesting. So then we go to Group E, Germany, Curacao, Ivory Coast, and Ecuador. Germany have failed in the last 2 World Cups to make it out of the group stage. I don't think that's happening this time. I think they'll probably batter Curacao, but the other 2 opponents, Ivory Coast, who are the current AFCON holders, and Ecuador, who have been one of the more impressive sides coming out of the CONMEBOL qualifying in South America. So these are going to be some difficult matches. I kind of look at this one sort of as the group of death. It's sort of one of them. I think there's maybe a couple possibilities. Group I is another one. We'll get to that one in a bit. But there are going to be some fantastic matches here. But Germany have a really good situation. And their first match is against Curacao. Curacao are not going to be fully ready. They're just going to come in amped up for this game. But if Germany can handle the situation and win, I remember in 2002, Germany beat Saudi Arabia on the opening match of the World Cup like 8-0. And you do that in your opening game, and you basically put yourself in the next round. Even if Germany were to beat Curacao 8-0 and then lose their next two games, their goal difference would probably be so good that they would advance as a third-place team. So you can imagine Ivory Coast, Ecuador, and Germany are all going to be looking at Curacao as that's a game we can pick up points and goals. Now, Curacao, if they do well and they ride a little bit of a wave and become a Cinderella story, they could really cause problems and make it so that one of these teams just fails to qualify, whether that means going in second or even third place. So really looking forward to this group in particular. All of the matches between those top three sides I think are going to be fascinating. Ivory Coast, Ecuador on day one, really, really going to be interesting because that's going to be a crunch match for those two teams to say, okay, who is going to be in contention or really going to second place? And then Ecuador will get Curacao next. So if Ecuador mess up against Ecuador, they get a game against Curacao to sort of correct things. But what's big is that if you are a team that, like Ecuador are a team that do well, they're tough to beat. Obviously, they play their home matches in qualifiers in Quito, which is high elevation. But they're not a major goal-scoring team, so they are going to need to use that opportunity against Curacao in the second game well. And I think Ivory Coast have more firepower than Ecuador. The question is, are they as settled of a side? So that's what's going to be fascinating about this group. Very much looking forward to it. As I said, I think this is quasi one of the groups of death. So going to be really interesting. I'm going to take a quick look, see if we have anyone in the chat. No. All right. Group F. We have the Netherlands, Japan, Tunisia, and the UEFA Path B winner. And Path B is Ukraine, Sweden, Poland, and Albania. I'd say Albania is the weakest of those four teams, not by much. And then the other three, Ukraine, Sweden, Poland, I mean, take your pick. I think they're really, really even. They're very similar teams in terms of the level of quality. Then you've got Japan, I'd say, fit right into that as well. And Tunisia just maybe that step below, probably level with kind of Albania. What this means is this group is really up for grabs. And Netherlands are going to need to stamp their authority on it. Beating Japan in the first game would be huge for them. That first match is absolutely massive for both of those teams. And then every game, I think, in this is going to be super interesting. I don't think anyone is going to blow anyone out, regardless as to who gets through from the qualifying from that Path B from UEFA. Poland, you got Lewandowski. Sweden, who had a horrendous qualifying campaign, but they actually made it to this stage because of their Nations League coefficient. So one of the reasons why the Nations League actually matters. Ukraine, look, I know a lot of people are, neutrals are very much supporting them right now. Their story of being essentially at war and trying to find a way to get to the World Cup. They're a good team. They pushed France in qualifying, and if they make it, I think that they will potentially cause some real problems because we've seen in the past teams that come to the World Cup with a lot of baggage from their home country. They tend to do really, really well, or at least they create a sort of vibe around them that makes them hard to beat. And if they can get on a roll and get some momentum, who knows how far they can go. So this will be an interesting group. Obviously, it's very, very hard to make calls as to who's going to win what because I think a lot of these teams are pretty similar. And that is a theme I've seen throughout with all these groups is the big teams have really all been separated. And then beneath them, you've got pretty good teams that came out of Pot B. And then the Pot C teams are not much worse either. So a lot of these groups are going to be pretty touch and go. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens with them. Let's move to Group G, where we have four teams officially set: Belgium, Egypt, Iran, and New Zealand. Belgium have to be the favorites here. And they have to deliver, because since 2018 they've been an utter failure in either the Euros or the World Cup. So they're going to need to pick things up and get their act together and do well. They'll play Egypt on day one. Egypt, we all know they have Mo Salah, Marmoush. But here's the funny thing. Their coach recently said that they have 2.25 professional players. He was saying that Marmoush and Salah are pros, and Mustafa Mohamed is a quarter of a pro, and the rest of the side basically sucks. That is not the way you want to go into a World Cup. Like that if the manager has that feeling about the team, in my opinion, you sack him. Get him out the door, get someone in who actually believes in the team. Because belief goes such a long way in the World Cup. These are one-off matches, essentially. I know that you're in a group stage, but each game essentially is like a knockout. Especially if you lose badly, it's really hard to recover. Teams that get thumped tend to get dumped out of the tournament, because it's hard to recover and sort of regain that good vibe in the team if you're getting your ass completely kicked. So Iran, it'll be interesting to see. I think they were really disappointing at the last World Cup. They kind of bunkered down against the U.S., and I think they have better players than that, but we'll see how they come into this tournament. New Zealand, I don't think you can expect a whole lot from them, but look, they'll be plucky. They'll try. I think their first match against Iran does give them an opportunity. But again, Belgium have to win this group easily, and then we'll probably see, in my opinion, Egypt and Iran duke it out for second place. Who finishes third, I don't know. It doesn't really matter, but they could make it through. As I said, third place teams, it's going to be interesting. Now, if you take a look at Spain, Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia, and Uruguay in Group H, this is fascinating. For a few reasons. One, I think Spain will walk this group. I don't think they'll have any issues. I think they will win every game. The question is by how many. And Cape Verde, I'm a big fan of them being in the tournament. Very excited for them. Their first appearance, they did really well in the AFCON last time around and won their group to qualify. So they are going to be fun. But I don't think they hold a candle to Spain. I think they lose that game. Saudi Arabia, Uruguay. You might say, well, Uruguay wins that easily. The problem with Uruguay is Marcelo Bielsa and whether the players actually are buying into what he's doing. And so what he said, some of the quotes that came out from players and him after the thumping that they got by the USA 5-1 last month, that was concerning for Uruguay. And the question is, like, are they going to come in feeling good, feeling, united and together? Because when Uruguay comes into a tournament like that, they're very dangerous and they can go a long way. If they're not, I mean, I could see them losing to Saudi Arabia and finishing dead last in this group, even behind Cape Verde. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with Uruguay in the next 6-7 months. Do they keep Bielsa? Does the feeling within the camp improve? Because if it does not, I could see them really, really struggling. Saudi Arabia, look, they beat Argentina 2-1 at the last World Cup and then failed to advance, which was a massive cock-up. I mean, when you beat the eventual champions in your opening game and then you manage to fail at getting out of the group, that's really not good. So Saudi Arabia are going to have to bring something, but this is not an easy group. And I actually really do think Cape Verde are one of the teams that could cause a surprise. And I wouldn't be surprised if sort of this, what you see here, is what it looks like at the end. Spain, Cape Verde, Saudi Arabia, Uruguay. I can see that being the way it shakes out after 3 matches played. All right, let's get to Group I, and the other group that I think is a group of death. France, Senegal, Norway, and the Intercontinental Path 2 winner, which would be Bolivia, Suriname, or Iraq. So none of those 3 teams I think are really going to go anywhere. I think no matter what, the team from the Intercontinental Playoff will finish dead last in this group, in my opinion. But France seeing Senegal, that's scary. Because in 2002, Senegal comes into the World Cup, first ever appearance, beat France, who are the holders, 1-0 on the opening day. France crash out of that World Cup, having not scored a goal, having not won a game, just getting 1 point against Uruguay. Thierry Henry sent off in that match. It was an utter disaster. Zidane couldn't play in the first 2 games due to injury, played against Denmark. They lose 2-0. It was an utter disaster for France, that 2002 World Cup. And it actually set up a path where, aside from 2006, where Zidane carried the team and took them to the final, they were poor at World Cups until 2018 when they won it. So Senegal are going to be a tough nut to crack, always a good side. And then you've got Norway. And so France-Senegal will be the first game. As we know, that'll be really, harken back to 2002. But the final match day of that group, you'll have Norway-France. And everybody knows how this is going to be built. This is going to be the Mbappe versus Haaland match. And it's going to be box office. I mean, and honestly, I think the matches in this group should be pretty good. I think France-Senegal probably will be cagey. But France-Norway is going to be a good match. I think that could be a high-scoring game. It could be like a 2-2, a 3-2, something like that. And look, we've seen what Mbappe can do at the World Cup. Now we're going to get to see what, one of the top 3 strikers in the world in Erling Haaland can do at this tournament. And, I mean, that is going to be terrific. I think that game is probably one of the marquee games of the group stage, France against Norway. And, look, I think France will advance, but is it totally crazy to think that they could mess up against Senegal, lose to Norway, and end up in third? Yeah. Bolivia, Suriname, and Iraq, those are the 3 teams that could finish in that other spot. Look, Bolivia, a huge reason why they qualify is because it's very difficult to go play in La Paz at altitude. They lost more games than they won in qualifying, and I believe are one of the only teams still in contention to make it to the World Cup, or the only team still in contention to make it to World Cup who has that kind of a record. Iraq would be good. It'd be cool. It'd be good to see them at the tournament. Suriname, we've got Curacao, and Suriname and Curacao in a lot of ways are very similar because they're old Dutch colonies, so they were able to get a lot of Dutch players to forego their Dutch citizenship and not forego their citizenship, but forego playing for the Dutch team in order to play here. And they did a very good job to build a program around that and get themselves into this position. But I think Iraq will probably be the winner of that, and then they will go into this group. But take a look at this. I mean, I don't think Iraq stand a chance against any of these 3 teams. So to me, this is the main group of death, and frightening from my perspective as a France fan. All right, Group J, it's the AJ group. Argentina, Algeria, Austria, and Jordan. Jordan did well in qualifying, but I don't think they get much out of this group right here. Argentina, they'll have their work cut out for them because they're world champions. They have a target on their back. They open up against Algeria. Then they've got Austria. And Austria are a good side. So it'll be very interesting to see if Austria come sort of playing like Switzerland did in the Euros. Well organized, well set, able to score goals, exciting football. They could pose problems for Argentina. And considering they play Jordan in their opening match, if they collect 3 points from that and then can hold Argentina or at least get close, I think they put themselves in great position to get to the next round. But Algeria and Australia are really interesting. Algeria, we know they have Riyad Mahrez. They're going to be a good side. They're going to be a really good side. So it's an interesting group. I do think Argentina, shouldn't have any issues, but we have seen the World Cup winners, the holders, come into a tournament numerous times now and really struggle. So, we saw France do it in 2002 after winning it in 98. We saw Italy win it in 2006 and get knocked out in 2010. Spain get knocked out in 2014 after winning it in 2010. Germany wins it in 2014. They get knocked out in 2018. It happens. So Argentina are going to have to keep their focus and make sure they get through. But I don't think they should have too many problems. But interesting group, at least alphabetically. You got to love the AJ group. All right, Group K, second to last one. Definitely one of the tournament favorites, Portugal. They will have Colombia, which is really fun. Uzbekistan, who I think could surprise some people. And then the Intercontinental path winner, which would be New Caledonia, Jamaica, or the Democratic Republic of Congo. And I'm really rooting for Congo. I did a little reel on Instagram and YouTube that got a lot of views from the wonderful country of Congo. So I also would like to go to Mexico to see this Intercontinental playoff that they will play. So it'll be New Caledonia, Jamaica. Winner of that will play Congo. I think Congo will make it through and get into this group. And when you look at that, that's a solid group where Portugal are the clear favorites. But then you have to say Colombia probably second, but Uzbekistan and Congo, difficult sides to play against. Uzbekistan have been building their program for a while. They've been doing very well at youth tournaments. Not necessarily winning them, but consistently getting into later rounds. And you've seen them build their program up to the point where now they've qualified for the World Cup. I think they were the first Asian team to do it. And they're going to be difficult because I don't think anyone knows what to expect from them. Most people don't know much about them. Their players are also unknown. So they'll be a surprise package and I think a fun team to see play. And their opening game against Colombia will be, it'll just be a great way to crack things off. Now, Colombia, they're going to pull up. I mean, those fans are going to fill the stadiums every single time. It's going to be like home matches for them here. And that will make their final group match against Portugal absolutely fascinating. But I think Portugal, look, they should walk this. Portugal should be a semifinalist in this tournament. I don't think there's really much denying that. And yeah, this group looks like a lot of fun. I think if Congo are the ones that make it, you've got four, totally different types of teams playing each other. And it's sort of like, this is kind of what the World Cup is all about right here. So that's Group K. I think Portugal and Colombia will finish top two, but it could go any which way. All right, let's round out with the final group. Group L, England, Croatia, Ghana, Panama. England had Panama in their group in 2018 and thrashed them 6-1. Panama are a better team than that now. They did scrape through to make it here, but I do think they'll be I don't think anyone's getting absolutely destroyed in this group. Now, England, though, are capable of beating anyone badly. So Croatia, Ghana, they're going to have to bring it. And Croatia are not as good as they've been. So it's going to be interesting to see, can they surprise people as they have in the past? Opening game against England will be tough. Ghana, Panama, that's a big one. If you can pick up 3 points in that one, you put yourself in great contention to get through. And then the group will end with Panama, England, and Croatia versus Ghana. Look, England have to be the favorites to get through this group. They have to get through this group. And then, like all the other groups, it's in a way it's take your pick. Who you think finishes second, and providing any of these teams can avoid getting absolutely decimated, like concede an enormous amount of goals, or a team, obviously, and then one team's going to be scoring that many. That will alter the picture of third place. And you'll see 8 third-place teams will go through. We'll see how that goes. 4 teams will get knocked out, and then another 12. So we're only really going to be getting rid of 16 teams out of 48 in that opening stretch of the tournament. We're going to be getting rid of 16 teams, my bad, which is not very many. So it's not hard to get to the next round. Question is what happens after that, and that'll be really, really interesting. So this is the bracket for the playoffs. I'm not going to get into this right now because, frankly, I don't really like doing predictions too much, and it's not worth the time. So World Cup draw has happened. This could not be more exciting. This is the greatest party on earth. I heavily recommend any of you who are somewhere in the United States, if you are in a city or in a region that does not have many games going on, go somewhere. Go find games. Tickets, obviously, are going to be interesting. It's going to be fascinating to see how they deal with this whole entire situation. The way the lotteries have worked, I've submitted now twice, haven't gotten anything. But I think what you do is you take a look at a region you want to go to, take a look at some games, and figure out, okay, what do I want to see? And you might be lucky enough that a match that does not have super high billing and that may not really fill a stadium will be available, and you can maybe go see a World Cup match for, not an insane exorbitant amount of money. Now, when it comes to how these teams will all do, I think a lot of this is going to come down to what is happening with players over the next 6 months. So the January transfer window, I think, is going to be really, really busy because there are players who are not currently playing for their clubs or are going to have a big break because, like MLS, the leagues take a long break, and you want to do something to keep yourself going. Some players might leave MLS, for instance, to go to Europe and to be able to keep getting minutes and increase their stock. But also it's a risk. If you go somewhere and you're not playing, you could get yourself out of the World Cup. Then there's fitness and form. Form, as we know, this is just one of those things that goes up and down. You can't really predict any part of it. The thing with injuries, though, is that there are players who are, say, currently injured, who ideally are supposed to get back to health within the next month or two, or within the next 2-3 months, whatever it is, and put themselves in contention. Obviously, from the U.S. side, we have Anthony Robinson, who has barely played for the last year or 18 months. If he is able to get fit then yeah, he's probably a lock to get into the side. If I look at England, for instance, they're going to have some big questions to answer. I mean, Phil Foden is back. Cole Palmer is no longer injured and is playing for Chelsea again. So if he picks up his form in the spring, over the wintertime and spring, you think he'd have to be in the England side. Jude Bellingham, if things get sorted out with the England team and he keeps performing at Real Madrid, there's 3 10s that you have. Thomas Tuchel, in terms of picking his team, it's going to be very difficult. France are in a similar situation. The big teams that have a bunch of players to choose from, they're going to have to make some calls, and some of these will be easily made by players getting injured or not being available. But then also, it's hard for us as fans to sort of look at this and predict what's going to happen, because what if 1 month before the World Cup, Kylian Mbappe picks up a hamstring injury that keeps him out for 8 weeks and he's out? Like, what does that change, right? What changes if Erling Haaland can't come to the World Cup for Norway? I mean, that'd be absolutely tragic, right? So across the board, different teams are going to have to figure out what to do with players. You're definitely going to see a lot of movement in January with the World Cup specifically in mind. I'm thinking about a player like Kobe Mainoo, for instance, who starts the Euro final for England and right now has gotten, I think 117 minutes I saw for Man United this season. That is not going to cut it. Like, the guy needs to be playing. So I'm really, really fascinated by how this is all going to pan out and work out. Tell me what you think. I mean, who do you think are the teams that you think will surprise people? Or do you think any of the major big boys will crash out? I think that's really unlikely because so many third-place teams go through. One of the small drawbacks about a tournament like this, I'm not a big fan of formats that involve third-place teams going through, because essentially what can happen is what happened with the Côte d'Ivoire in the AFCON last time around, which they won, which was kind of amazing. But the thing is that they started the tournament so poorly and actually ended up essentially out, right? They were essentially eliminated. And then because of results in other groups, it turns out that they inched their way up the third place table. I mean, they sacked their manager after their final group game, and then in the time that they were waiting to see if they'd qualify, they hired a different guy, and then, oh wow, we're made into third place. Now we're in the knockout rounds, and then after that, they just survived and advanced and ended up winning the competition on home soil. Nice story. It's kind of also weird that a team could be essentially facing elimination after having played all their matches in the elimination spots, and then because of other matches, they sort of work their way up. Look, no format is perfect. My favorite is the 32. I think the only way to make to scale up the amount of teams and keep that same thing is to actually go 64 teams, and you still only keep the top 2 from each group and do a round of 32. Which I think is what they'll do in Saudi Arabia, maybe even as early as the 2030 World Cup. We will see. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be fascinating. I think there's so many questions. I think also one thing that's important to remember is the style of football that is being played in the modern era right now, and the different styles and all the different tactical tweaks that can be made. It's going to mean that games are going to be really varied. You're not just going to see a bunch of 4-5-1s playing against each other the whole time. You will see a lot of teams in back threes. You'll see teams that are employing things like what we see at PSG. I mean, Argentina are fantastic at doing this, just rotating positions, guys going into different areas. And then you've got your superstars and how superstars are essentially aided by the rest of their squad to do the damage, because that's the way international football really works. You stay solid and balanced and then hope your difference makers can go and make an impact and score goals. And then, of course, you need a solid defense and a good goalkeeper. And we will see very, very clearly which teams have that and which teams don't. But this is a great big step in the direction of the tournament. Now we can really start to plan. I think you can take a look at the map and where you want to go and what kind of games you want to go see and where you want to prioritize your money to be able to get tickets. But the main thing is this is going to be an absolutely fantastic party. Obviously, my hope is that there are no giant issues, political problems. But, why not just be optimistic? Most of the time, the negative noise around a tournament just goes away the second a ball is kicked. And I think that's what will happen here. And, it's the World Cup. We are so close. So On January 1st, on New Year's, right at midnight, right when the clock strikes 12, I implore all of you to go ahead, no matter where you are, put your arms in the air and scream, "It's World Cup here." That's what I do. That's what I've been doing now for 20 years. It feels great, and it's on home soil for any of you who are in the United States. For any of you coming, welcome. I really hope that you're able to come and enjoy yourself and have a good time. There's going to be some annoying things about America, there's for sure, but hopefully this country pulls off being a good host, and we don't have to worry about the politics, and we can just enjoy the football. So, thank you for stopping by in this live stream. For anyone who was able to stick around for at least a little bit, would love to know your thoughts in the comments section. And yeah, World Cup is coming. This is the thing that I think a lot of us really live for. So thanks for stopping by. I'm Sebastian North. This is Campfire Football. I will talk to you soon. Take it easy.